Human connection is a fundamental need for all humans, but because of social anxiety, lack of self-confidence, and social pressure, it can sometimes be hard to make a good connection with somebody. In this video, we want to share with you our tips on how to make easy connections with anybody.
And by the end of this video, you'll be more confident in your ability to make friends, network, and improve your relationship.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Beyond the Beach. This video is really important to us because it's something that, is really personal. For me, I've been good at, making friends and talking with people my entire life, but also working in sales for over half a decade, attending Tony Robbins events, Grant Cardone events, and going to networking events on a regular basis. Building connections with people is something that I have a lot of experience in and I'm excited to share with you about.
I enjoy learning about communication through books and also going to similar events, whether that's farmers markets or other networking sessions. But from learning about those experiences, I've been able to learn my strengths and also the areas of improvement. So we're excited to share more tips to help you connect with anyone.
Tip number one, connections are easier when you have common interests. What I mean by that is it's easy to have conversations or to have some type of rapport with somebody if you both have similar interests in something, and that can be anything. For me, in my experiences, when I've gone to networking events like Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone, it was really easy to talk to people there because I knew that we already had something of common. Whether I knew them or not, whether it was my first time meeting them or I've met them before, because we were both at a similar event that we both had invested money in and we both knew the person giving their speech, I could have some type of relationship and something to talk off of. Along with Sabrina and I, coming from the Northeast and moving to Miami about 6 years ago, we had to make new friends here in the city.
Yeah, at least for us, we would go to jiu-jitsu. We met a lot of great friends and also friends at the gym. We were able to connect with people through fitness, just health and wellness. I would say also we were able to meet a lot of great friends at church. And also there's a lot of great resources to meet new people, just again, based on common interests. Like you can go on Eventbrite, there's meetup apps. You can just connect with people and you don't have to overthink it.
And my best advice I do every time I'm in a new place is I go to places that I want to be at. For example, Sabrina and I like church a lot. We're followers of God and followers of Jesus. And so if we're thinking about going to a new city, one place that we always thinking about going is a church. That way we can meet friends in that area who have similar interests as us.
Yeah, and connections come easier when you focus on the other person. I mean, let's be honest, like if you're really just talking about yourself, the conversation is gonna go really short.
Of course. Whenever I'm on the phone with a client in my sales job, or I'm at a networking event, or Sabrina and I are meeting a new couple, the first thing I'm always trying to learn is about the other person. I had a class at college a few years ago, and it was a history class, and the history professor said one of the most amazing things to me, and it really helped me connect with people ever since. And he said, the best way to learn about somebody is by going for their history. When you learn about the history of anything, you can become more experienced and have a better relationship with it. And what he meant by that is like, when I first meet somebody, I'm always like thinking in my mind, what is their history? How did they get to where we are if we're in the same environment? How are we talking about the subject? Why do they like this? I'm always thinking about better and better questions to ask about their history so I can get to know them better.
Right, and it makes them feel valued and appreciated, and you give off the energy that like, wow, this person is interested in me, rather than, oh, this person's interested in talking about themselves.
100%. And it makes it easy on you if you're nervous, like me sometimes, you have social anxiety and you want to connect with somebody. Instead of, trying to fill in this conversation with just random fluff, learn about the other person. When you learn about them, they want to share, and you can find more places of rapport to have a better conversation. Which brings us to tip number 3. When you ask questions, listen. This is critical. And I can't tell you how often it is that we'll meet people or I'll talk to people and you're like, man, if you just took a second to actually hear what I said, this conversation would be so much better.
Yeah, it's really true, because the details that you can miss out on by not listening could be your opportunity to connect with that person.
And a couple resources I wanted to share is Ed Milet. It has a great podcast, and if you haven't heard about it, now you have. And we'll include any descriptions, any links, anything in the description below for you guys to use. But Ed Milet has this podcast about listening, and it was so important because he's like, if you actually listen more, the other person would give you so much information to talk and to learn about them, and the conversation is, there's no pressure on you because all you do is ask a great question about their history, about the event that you guys are at, learning about them. And when you sit back and listen, pay attention to the fine details that they're talking about. And when you listen, and I have this experience even with my fiance here, is when you listen, the other person feels valued. They feel valued, and guess what? They start to like you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And another resource for everyone, there's a really great communication leader. His name is John Maxwell, and he has a great book, funny enough, it's called Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. And there's an emphasis on asking questions. There's a strong pull on listening. And he says that leaders are sometimes put in a box of what they can give, but it's also what you receive. And receiving is what you get by listening. And he said that there's so many conflicts that can be solved just by listening to what a person is saying, their perspective, because at the end of the day, if you're just projecting yours, you're not receiving theirs.
Tip number 4, connections come easier when you respect yourself. This is massive, especially because at the beginning of the video, I talked about some of the struggles that it is when trying to make connections, because trust me, I've had all those struggles of social anxiety, lack of self-confidence, not knowing what to say, having social pressures, trying to be cool enough.
Me too.
But one of the biggest things in making great connections and having a good relationship with somebody is respecting yourself. And I mean this to the very basic points of dressing well, having proper hygiene, thinking well about yourself, having good I am statements instead of saying I am not good at talking with people, but I am confident and I can have good relationships with people. Because if you don't respect yourself, nobody else will.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I guess to also expand from that is having respect for yourself and the knowledge that you have. Sometimes where you can come off as disrespectful is just coming off as like you know everything. Just have the respect to just be like, you know what, I may be ignorant in this topic, and then give the other person an opportunity to share their knowledge. Because again, that's an opportunity for you both to connect.
And when we were making this video, I wanted to include this tip, respect yourself, because when I was in school, there was this kid I liked a lot. He was such a cool person, but he had horrible hygiene. Like he smelled so bad. Even my mom didn't want me hanging out with him, but I thought he was a really nice person. I really enjoyed being out with him. But everybody was like, dude, he stinks. And I had to tell him. And you find it so often that even when I go to networking events, when people have really bad breath or they smell bad, even though they might be really awesome as a person, it's hard to connect with them because, man, it's hard to be in that environment with them, right? So I wanted to bring this because it's important to be aware. The more you are aware of something, the more you can do something about it. So make sure to respect yourself and take care of that hygiene.
And communication comes easier when you don't go into a conversation just trying to get something out of it. Let's be honest again, when people get a sense of you just having this intention of getting something rather than also just exchanging information, they're really turned off and would rather exit the conversation. And also they can pick up that you're not being your authentic self, where typically people want to connect with who you are for who you really are.
And connections come easier when you don't be rude or ask inappropriate questions. Asking questions is really important. Like we mentioned earlier with the history, learning about people's history, but be respectful to other people. Respect, as we said earlier, respecting yourself, but respecting others is critical, because if someone doesn't feel like you respect them or you think that what they're saying is funny, not in an appropriate way, they're definitely not gonna like you, and they're gonna make sure you're aware of that. And I've had situations where I've tried to be funny, saying funny jokes that were inappropriate, and ended up really backstabbing me. And especially because it was somebody I didn't know very well. Looking back, I wish that I had thought a little bit more about, hey, think about what's respectful and being respectful to the other person, because they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, and definitely being able to read the room, right? Because also, like, if it is your first impression, we could speak from that scenario. You maybe not want to jump the gun and have like these really cheeky jokes, because you're not yet having that relationship or connection with the person. But as you get to know each other from time to time, you get to learn again where you can communicate and where you maybe could lay off in the conversation. And I would say another point to help you make communication easier for yourself is to not overthink it. Like sometimes we think so much about what we're going to say that just creates a lot of mental blocks, and then that prevents us from having the right words or just having the right energy and attitude to make the connection.
Pro tip, at a networking event or when meeting people for the first time, don't ask what they do for work as their first question.
Who loves that question?
It is horrible, because all that person is thinking about is what you can do for them. So Of course, you want to learn about what they do for work because maybe it might add to the conversation, but I would save it for the third or fourth question that you ask them. And here's our call to action. When was the last time you introduced yourself to somebody new? When was the last time that you got out of your comfort zone and went to an event that you've never been at? Think about opportunities of going ahead and making new connections with people. Just like anything in life, it takes practice to be good at something. I've had over more than half a decade of sales, making for cold calls. I've been to many networking events, still do today. And the practice of consistently going out to new places, shaking hands with people and making friends, even when sometimes you don't want to, maybe on a night after you get home from work, or you're just tired, you don't want to go home, you want to stay inside. Take an opportunity to go with friends and learn how to make connections with people, because I promise you, not only is it going to be easy for you after watching this video, but it's going to make you feel healed. Well, one of the best things I've learned being here in Miami through going through my church is being with other people helps solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, the power of community.
The power of community. That's what I want to get at.
Yeah, so those are our 5 tips to help you connect with anyone. Please let us know what you have learned or something that you want to improve on from the tips we shared today. This is something that we're really passionate about, communication. And yeah, it was super fun sharing what we know, and also we're going to share more about that in our journey here on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and remember,
there's always more beyond the beach.